So woke up to the news this morning. Apparently, at the Dolphins Patriots game on Sunday, a Dolphins fan, it's being described as a Dolphins fan beat the crap out of a Patriots fan, and then the Patriots fan actually died. Um, I'm going to play the video. There was a news report on it. I'm going to play the video, and then we'll talk about it.
At Gillette Stadium,
we heard a commotion, which happens in stadiums all the time.
It was not the action on the field, but rather in the stands that had people on their feet.
We looked up and we just saw a bunch of people standing around in an area, and there were, a lot of the people that were standing around were filming with their phones.
Cell phone footage obtained by NBC 10 shows Patriots and Miami Dolphin fans going toe-to-toe at Sunday night's game. You can see them wrestling amongst each other, and at one point, a Dolphin fan is caught throwing a punch at a man wearing a Pats jersey. Witnesses tell NBC 10 the Pats fan, identified as 53-year-old Dale Mooney of Newmarket, New Hampshire, went unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital after officials say he suffered a medical episode and died shortly after.
No sport is worth, getting physical with anybody.
It happened in the 308 section of the stadium. Keith Noonan was in section 309 with his son.
Security rushed up. There was a police officer that rushed up as well. It looked like they brought a defibrillator, and they got the paddles out.
More than half a dozen officers and security guards seen here in this photo. Witnesses tell NBC 10 first responders did CPR for at least 10 minutes.
Shocked. We had to get everyone in that section had to get moved.
That's Devin Kerwin. We talked to him over the phone.
We all went there to enjoy the game, enjoy the sport, and I just think it's ridiculous what happens these days.
Kerwin said.
All right, so it's kind of difficult to tell, obviously, exactly what happened from watching the video there in terms of what happened before the fight. Boy, this one really hits home for a couple of reasons. The man that died, and first of all, just, beyond more than condolences to the family. I mean, because I cannot imagine what they're going through right now. There's a lot of comments going around. This speaks to our culture today. And in some ways I agree, and in some ways I agree, but not in the ways that people are kind of seeing it. I see it a little bit differently. The man that passed on was 53, and from what it sounds like he had a heart attack during the fight or as a result of hitting his head. There's mixed reporting in terms of if he just fell and hit his head or how exactly that went. I'm not going to sit here and try to speculate. But he was 53, and they tried to revive him. Basically, he had a heart attack, and he died. And it really hits me because Kyle and I mean, I'm 52. Right? I'm basically the same age as this guy, and we're sitting here talking about, because we live across the bay from Baltimore, and we were talking yesterday about how it's possible that Dolphins-Baltimore game in Baltimore could be for the top seed in the AFC, and thinking about going. And one of the reasons why, it might be a small reason, but one of the reasons why I've not ventured out to an Eagles game or a Ravens game as a Dolphin fan is things like this. Now, I'm old school, okay? I went to games as a kid at the Orange Bowl, and I've often cracked the joke, but it's a true joke, that you're guaranteed two things at a Jets-Dolphins game in the Orange Bowl. Somewhere around the third quarter, two things was going to happen. Number one, at least one to a half dozen women were going to take their tops off. And number two, there were going to be fights in the stands. Now, the difference between what I saw as a kid in the Orange Bowl and the difference here in this fight is twofold. Number one, if there was a fight in the stands, nobody was recording it. Everybody was working hard to break it up. And number two, the security guards didn't put up with that shit back then. You watch this video, and I want to be clear, I'm not blaming the security guards for what happened. However, what I will say is that if you're at an event where it's possible that a fight could erupt, all right, we can take the idea. We can take the idea that the fighting shouldn't happen and put it over here on the shelf, because humans are going to human. unless you were going to completely eliminate alcohol sales, you're outside, you're drinking, and at some point, something's going to happen. It is just human nature. You are not going to stop that unless you eliminate the alcohol. So you have to view it from the perspective of it's possible that we might have fights in the stands. Whether you agree it should happen or not, it will happen. Then let's have some security at these games that's actually qualified to be security. And I know that most of the time you're dealing with guys my age or a little bit older, not in great shape. They're more prone to be like ushers, right, than actually security guards. But I do believe that it should be part of the qualifications to get that job. If it's your job to recognize and try to disrupt or break up any fights, you should be physically able, you should have the physical ability to get in between people, or the physical desire to get in between people, and at least attempt to stop things like this from happening. So I'm not blaming the security guard at all, but at the same time, you never know you never know what would happen if you had somebody who could break things up after 10 seconds instead of not being able to break it up because they're physically incapable of doing it. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the rest of the people around them. Now, on one hand, I've seen a lot of people be critical of people that film these things. I understand both sides, because the only reason we saw what happened is because somebody was there filming it, right? And how many times has somebody filming these interactions proven or disproven the accusations against somebody? For all we know, somebody else might have an angle of, a different angle of what happened, and maybe happened earlier, that gives us some context to what happened during the fight. So I'm not necessarily I don't necessarily disagree with people filming, but maybe it's just me. But back in my day, those fights got broken up really, really, really quick. All right. Other people jumped in, security was right there, and security was always the biggest guys. Okay. They look like, nightclub bouncers. We'll put it that way. So again, not blaming the security guard. There's faults everywhere. And the other part to that is that, we don't know exactly what happened before this fight. We don't know if one guy was mouthing off to the other. We don't know. It is unfortunate. It is tragic. And it's humans are going to human.